Okay. Well, there we go. The video element on these podcasts, man, more and more each week. Hey, I like it. All right, let's talk bubble. Let's talk bubble results here, and we'll go chronological order. So Monday, the three most prominent: Indiana blows a lead late against Ohio State. TCU got a home win against West Virginia. North Carolina avoids a bad loss. It beats Louisville. We'll start with Indiana. The Hoosiers, I think they're getting in. Man, the thing is, man, it's not that they lose against Ohio State. They weren't expected to win. They had this lead. They had a double-digit lead, and they blew it. Now, Indiana's lost 5 consecutive games, and they've put their NCAA tournament future in doubt. And I did not think that was going to be the case. Basically, in the preseason, I didn't think it was going to be the case. We had a dribble handoff post, which if you're unfamiliar and listening, at cbssports.com, once a week, we will do a collaborative piece where each of us will kind of offer a paragraph's worth of thoughts on a given topic. And that dribble handoff post earlier in the season, I think in the preseason, was which non-top 25 team, maybe the preseason AP poll has come out, which non-top 25 team do you think has the best chance at being a Final Four long shot, I guess? And my pick was Indiana, because I believed it then, and I believed it as recently as maybe 6 weeks ago. But the Hoosiers have been in something of a free fall here. At one point, they were a 16-5 team, and now they're sitting at 16-10. They lose 80-69 on Monday against Ohio State, which, by the way, in getting the win, allow me to give a little bit of credit to Chris Holtmann, of course. They needed them to get themselves back on the right track there. IU right now, I think I'd have them. I really think, like, I was doing some like quickie bracketing stuff yesterday morning. I think I'd have Indiana as like a 12 right now. I think they're that close to this. Your thoughts on the Hoosiers? I don't know how much of that game you saw, but do we think this team's going in the NCAA tournament? I mean, look at the schedule they got coming up. Yeah, yay or nay? February 23rd right now. Make the prediction, KB.
No, they're not getting in. No, I don't think so.
Getting in.
I don't think so. They've got Maryland, Minnesota, Rutgers, Purdue to close the regular season. So maybe. I'm going to say no. That was their 5th straight loss, losing to Ohio State. It was a tough one. They've had some close ones here too. But that, for their resume, I think they really needed. That's a tough one for them to swallow. Here's what Jerry Palm had to say earlier in the week, by the way. He said, Indiana drops to 16-10 overall, 8-10 against the top 3 quadrants. He says that is the sort of record against that group that the committee has historically found very difficult to reward. And Palm's not writing them off either. He's still kind of tracking them closely in his bubble watch. But I'll throw it back to you and see what you think. I kind of don't think Indiana gets in the NCAA tournament. What do you think?
I'm going to say it gets in, although the resume is, how about this? Indiana right now is 5-10 against the top 2 quadrants. It doesn't have a Q3 or Q4 loss, which is helping it at the moment. And if you're looking specifically in quad 1, 2-6 record. Schedule upcoming. Thursday, home against Maryland, obviously a must-win situation.
Yep.
Right. Then they're at Minnesota. I don't want to call it a must-win, but you complicate matters if you can't go on the road and beat a Minnesota team that we talked about early in the season. It started hot, but Ben Johnson's squad is 4-12 in the league, and its wins, since January 1 have been against Rutgers at home, when Rutgers wasn't Rutgers, and yet it was Rutgers. And they beat Penn State at home and Northwestern at home. That's Minnesota's win. So Indiana kind of got to win that. Then they're home against Rutgers. And then they will close at Purdue. You go 3-1 in that stretch. I say you go 3-1 in any combination. Any combination. You win your next 3, you lose at Purdue, fine. You lose at home to Maryland, it's going to be complete 5-alarm fire. But if you can then win at Minnesota, beat Rutgers at home, and then win at Purdue, you're going to really do yourself well. And then avoid at all costs. Who knows where they're going to be seated and what the Big Ten bracket is going to look like, KB? But you cannot lose your first Big Ten tournament game. So we could have some real drama here with the Hoosiers and Mike Woodson in his first season. As a reminder, Indiana has not made the NCAA tournament since 2016. It would have been in the field in 2020. It wasn't a great team, but it was relatively comfortably projected to make the field in 2020, 9-10 seed range. But we didn't have a tournament there. So it's just been a while. Indiana fans are aching for it, and that was certainly a bubble result of note. Elsewhere on Monday, You had TCU winning at home against West Virginia. Man, Bob Huggins is a finalist for the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame, and his team is
falling apart.
They were 13, dude. They were 13-2 at one point, and now they're 14-13. West Virginia and Oklahoma, and oh, by the way, Oklahoma, which scored 42 points at Texas Tech on Tuesday night. I obviously didn't see the game because I was at UConn Nova. Oklahoma is now 14-14 and has gone from an 11-2 group that seemed like, yeah, they're gonna go to the NCAA tournament. They might not even be in the NIT. So, those are the two teams in the Big 12 that have had their issues, but good on TCU. TCU right now is a 17-8 team. They're still sub 500 in the Big 12. I don't care about league record. That's something a lot of people will focus on. I just never look at it because it's completely irrelevant as far as the selection committee is concerned. TCU's not there yet, though. Their best metric is on the team sheet to strength of record. They're 34th. Everywhere else, they're in the 50s, with the exception of KPI. They're 46. So the resume stuff is helping them. TCU has more work to do right now. Their remaining schedule is Wednesday at Texas. That's a biggie. Saturday, they'll host Texas Tech. Get this. They got Kansas back-to-back, and then they're at West Virginia. I mean, TCU, they're going to absolutely earn it if they get in. They have got the toughest stretch upcoming of any team in the conference there. I'm going to say, I'm not going to make this. We're going to predict yes or no for every team. But since we did it with Indiana, I don't think TCU's going. They can get there, but at Texas, home to Tech, home to Kansas, at Kansas. By the way, that's home to Kansas on a Tuesday, at Kansas 2 days later. Okay,
on a Tuesday.
Yeah, that's next week. And then at West Virginia to close it out. So a good necessary win at home earlier in the week, but TCU has got its work cut out for us. Any thoughts on the Froggies, by the way?
Not really. They definitely needed that one to stop the 3-game skid, but this upcoming schedule is absolutely brutal. Palm has them in as a 9 seed. I'm not going to make a prediction at this point, but yeah, basically the toughest upcoming stretch for any Big 12 team in the toughest conference in college basketball. I mean, if they get in, they're going to earn it for sure. But this is a brutal gauntlet for TCU upcoming.
Other result from Monday was North Carolina just getting the win against Louisville. We have a question, I think, that's going to be coming in the mailbag portion about the Tar Heels. So I'll keep my thoughts relatively short for now because I'll talk about Hubert. But UNC is 20-8, and its resume right now 1-7 in quad 1, 4-0 in quad 2. That's a combined 5-7 mark, and they've got the quad 4 loss to Pitt there. They keep on the straight and narrow. But we'll save some UNC talk for later. Tuesday's bubble results: Florida lost, and I think that was kind of a sneaky detrimental loss here because the Gators, KB, they win over the weekend against Auburn, then they get a home opportunity against Arkansas. They lose 82-74. Now they're at Georgia and at Vanderbilt. Losing those games just torpedoes your resume. They got to win them. Then they finish up at home against Kentucky. If they beat Kentucky, they'll be there. But I kind of feel like Florida's really dangling in the air here. Mike White, I know the fan base, they are growing frustrated, which is, it's an interesting spot to be in because you knocked off Auburn over the weekend in lemon booty fashion, but you did it nonetheless. And then you can't take advantage of at home against Arkansas. Thoughts on the Gators and how much you saw that game on Tuesday? Again, I'm talking about Tuesday games that I didn't see because of where I was at. So I'm relying on you here, KB, on what will happen there with the Gators and Razorbacks.
Yeah, I did get to watch this game last night. Arkansas is just a buzzsaw right now. That's kind of my takeaway from the game that I watched. They've won 12 of their last 13 games. I thought Florida played pretty well. Colin Castleton finished with a career-high 29 points in that loss last night. But Arkansas seemed like every time Florida was climbing back into it, they just kept finding ways to kind of push that game out of reach. So it's obviously a tough loss. They win that one, and maybe they're feeling pretty good. But I thought that was a pretty interesting game from Tuesday that kind of snuck under the radar. Arkansas, like I said, they've won 12 of their last 13. They're probably the hottest team in the SEC right now.
They absolutely are, and they would be on the 4 line right now if we built out a bracket. If you're watching live or if you're watching after the fact, a reminder to please hit the like button if you have not already. Give it a nice little thumbs up. Engagement helps grow the channel. You have been terrific, and I'm giving thanks and credit to the crew right now that's involved in this, because when we get to March, like, the channel's been growing nicely. Downloads have continued to grow, which is terrific. This thing's going to spike. We're going to get some great new fans in. We're going to get some randoms in here. So if you could help us continue to grow the channel, it would be greatly appreciated. Commenting, engaging, all that good stuff. And if you have not already, if you got a buddy, a mom, dad, sister, cousin, anything that enjoys college basketball, but you're not quite sure if maybe they would, if they listen to podcasts, just bring it up in conversation, just casually, just let them know we're out there. Love to have you. And by the way, as we get into March and the schedules get really crazy, not just with games, but with my work schedule, Parrish's, we will have a lot of mix and match. So there'll be some episodes. Most episodes will be me and GP, but there will be the occasional. Maybe we'll go 3-way, and there will be me and KB, or me and Cobb, GP and KB. There'll be a whole bunch of stuff, and you'll have many more episodes to look forward to. So that's a preview for March. And thank you again. We are going to do a live mailbag portion on the back end of this that we'll publish in audio form on Thursday. So if you have questions, feel free to drop in the chat and we will answer them. Other bubble results from Tuesday: Iowa beats Michigan State to continue its resume building. It's in the field right now for sure. How about, by the way, so Luka Garza gets his name in the rafters, as did Marble, which was great. But how about the fact that Murray has had this kind of season as a follow-up to Luka Garza? Like, Luka Garza was essentially a wire-to-wire National Player of the Year a season ago, and that's the kind of thing we talked about in the podcast, KB, where Iowa just, it normally doesn't have that. And yet, even though I don't know if Murray's going to win it, he has played brilliantly this season. He had 28 and helped him win against Michigan State. Let me give you the floor here. Talk a little bit about the Hawkeyes at 19-8 and what Keegan Murray's been able to do, being a top 5 scorer in the country, 37% from 3. He's 5th right now in KenPom's Player of the Year algorithm. What'd you see on Tuesday night, and what do you think of the Hawkeyes?
Keegan Murray, first team All-American for you right now, or no?
It's close.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's either like the last person on the first team or the first person on the second team. It's such a crowded race, which I personally love, but he's very much in the mix there, particularly because he's a very good two-way player, which I'll take into account.
Yeah, that was an eye-opening result, I thought, from Tuesday. They totally dominated in that game down the stretch, Keegan Murray in particular. I thought what the Hawkeyes did to Michigan State was pretty jarring, honestly. It felt like in the second half, they just completely turned it up to a new level down the stretch. Michigan State completely laid down. Michigan State's now lost 5 of its last 6 games. So yeah, that was kind of my brief takeaway. It was decently close even midway through that second half, and then Iowa just turned it up to a new gear. I think the story's probably more about Michigan State right now because they're kind of flailing in the wind, but I think we should show some love to Iowa because that was a pretty impressive closing finish for Keegan Murray and Iowa in that game last night.
It was. There's no doubt about it. Michigan State's got some issues, no doubt about that. I'll get to that in a second. Iowa right now is 19th in the net as of Wednesday morning. Its predictives are better than its results-based metrics. If Iowa kind of works its way to the field, but they take one more bad loss, kind of get some good wins, they could be an interesting test case or a study in how the committee is going to see the field. I think there's a couple of teams this season where the disparity between results-based metrics and predictive metrics are stark enough where we're going to actually be able to look at 3 or 4 teams that get into the tournament, and we'll say, okay, did the committee apply the same philosophy overall with all these teams, or is there inconsistencies? And if that does happen, the latter part, if we have inconsistencies, I think it's important for people to remember, because I've had conversations with committee members over the years about this. I'd love to have these, by the way, I'd love to have these conversations on the record. Unfortunately, the way things go, it's always just the committee head who speaks to this. But on on background conversations over the years, I've basically been told, listen, there have been cases with teams that either got in or didn't get in, or were on this seed line instead of this seed line, where there might be, it was a 10-person committee in the past, now it's 12 people. There might be 3 people in the room that are vehemently banging the table for this team to be in the field as opposed to out or whatever. But it is a collective vote, which is good. Like you've got a diversity of thought, and it's gonna, there's a process to this, and every committee member puts in their overall seed rankings, and then it's just going to spit out the order it's going to spit out. But just remember, if we do have inconsistencies, it doesn't mean that all 10 or 12 committee members thought, well, we're going to apply this set of thinking to Iowa, but we're not going to do that same thing. Who's another team that might this apply? Maybe Murray State. Like Murray State, I actually think has some pretty intriguing potential seeding possibilities. We're not going to do it with Murray State, or we're not going to do it with, say, North Carolina if it gets in. So just keep that in mind going forward. I'm sure we address that once we get into March. As for Michigan State, real quick, I had the Spartans I'm going to blindly, and my 1-358 preseason, I want to say I had them like 34th or 35th. I wasn't all in the way some others were relatively all in. And by all in, people thought this was going to be a top 25 team. They're about now, big picture. Now they're slumping. They've dropped 5 or 6, but on the whole, if you kind of step back and look at what they've done, they're about what I thought they would be. So I'm not stunned. They just aren't getting consistent enough. It's obvious, but as we said, they just don't get consistent enough play, and they aren't a good shooting team. They're decently on offense from 3-point range, but inside the arc, they're horrendous. They're 198th in the country. That's very bizarre for a Tom Izzo team. And to this point, Max Christie, the talented freshman, he hasn't made the jump. There's been some nice moments. Tyson Walker had a good game the other day. AJ Hogar has been good. I do like Malik Hall a lot, but this could be something of an MSU team where, and I might have mentioned this on the pod. If I didn't mention it on this one, I mentioned it on the College Sports Now, which if you want a little extra Norlander, College Sports Now podcast, feel free to go find it.
Here's my quick GP impersonation. I'm going to take my hat off and I'm going to go bald and said, Norlander, how dare you go advertising this on CBS.
How about that gorgeous dome? That gorgeous dome there. But I said with Michigan State, they could just kind of get into the field and be a one and done. It might be a little bit of a lost season. They barely squeaked in last year. I don't know. Are you kind of with me on that? There's just not a lot of reasons to get inspired about what MSU has this season.
Yeah, it's an okay team. It's not a team that totally overwhelms you with talent. I'm super impressed by Max Christie long term, but this year, you're right. He hasn't quite made the leap. Izzo's allowed him to kind of play through some of these mistakes, and we'll see. It does feel like this is not a totally vintage Michigan State team for Tom Izzo. So they end up going one and done in the NCAA tournament. That totally would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, we'll see. There's the old January, February Izzo meme or tweet that pops up each year. I don't know about that one though. We'll see. Miami won on Tuesday. Last bubble team we'll get to. They won at Pitt, so they just dodged the bad loss here. Hurricanes are now a 20-win team this season, and I think they're going to get in. Right now, Miami feels like 10 seed level, right around there with getting this win. They still got more work to do. They're definitely a bubble team. They're going to play Virginia Tech at home on Saturday, and then they close at BC at Syracuse. So they've got winnable games for the remainder of the schedule. As long as they don't drop 2 of the next 3 and then flop in the ACC tournament, I think Miami will be okay. I'll say this. Miami's one of those teams. They get 3 wins no matter how they get them. They're getting in. 2 might even be enough. But we shall see. They got swept by Virginia, which makes for an intriguing situation for the Wahoos, and we'll get to them in just a minute. Those are the bubble results from the past couple of days.